Boom, 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 boom. So Google's live. We're live. We are all alive, unless it's a dream in which we're all in the mind of God or something. But anyway, Puneet and Piotr and Sam in the house. It's the Martin Fowler, Scrum. Hey Martin, wouldn't it be awesome if we could actually get Martin Fowler to attend the Martin Fowler Scrum? Maybe then the universe would just cease. We'd have the internet would implode, and it'd be like that film with Being John Malkovich. Anyway, so. Things. Most recently, I've just been reviewing the pull requests, looking at the discussion that Piotr and I are having related to the friendly ID testing and so on and so forth. We can look at that some more soon. Yesterday afternoon, big thing for me was working with Michael, and we've got MailChimp integration now into the static site, which was nice to get set up. Yeah, and we basically made sort of a list of elements to sort of fix up the static sites. And I think Michael is off to see Captain America: Civil War today, so we may not. But that actually not bad. May allow me to finish make more progress with the transcribing from the AV102 course. That's still a big thing for me. I think I've really got to re-record the video on forums and chat and stuff. It's like so out of date. So yeah. So transcribing. Making headway on the static sites. I'm kind of keen. I've got this idea of like an Agile Ventures Premium Plus, where people, can like pay for priority pairing and stuff. But I don't know. I'm going with the flow. Finally, yeah. But I have managed to get like a rubric together for peer review of pair programming videos, which we're going to be testing tomorrow with the Autograder instructors. Yeah. Then the local support client is having a busy couple of weeks, so. Not going to have a face-to-face meeting with her today, but I will send her. I think I should send her at least a viewable version of Piotr's new view of the local support icons, which she can maybe sign off on. So yeah, that's my update. I'm discoordinated. Piotr, how are things at your end?
So there was a little problem with DB setup.
Oh yes. Yes.
So we know what's the problem, but we are not sure why it happens. But nevertheless, I just made a small workaround about it, and I made a small pull request also from that. So I guess also with that, maybe some documentation or wiki should be changed to inform people how it should be set up, in fact.
Yes.
So my fix was just really easy, because I just moved DB migrate from this DB setup, and it seems now it works. Everything works fine. So I'm not sure why when my migrate was with seeding, connected with seeding, then it wasn't working. But anyway, now it's working. So
well, and I wonder there if that's because these are perhaps asynchronous tasks, like that maybe this starts running, and then this starts running before this one completes.
Maybe, but it seems that this DBC doesn't see everything that DB migrate did. So
right, and so that would be the case if if these are fire and forget operations, if they run in separate threads. Right, then this one could start, and this one could actually start before this one finishes.
So maybe yes, maybe it's the problem, but
anyway,
we don't need to, in fact, to complicate things. If we just move DB migrate from this setup task, everything works fine, and just we can also write it in one command, DB migrate and then DB setup. So I think there is no sense into digging into that.
No.
So I was also trying to see the task that you said yesterday about Travis and this rake test with coveralls.
Oh yes.
So I just found that in past there used to be like a problem with simple cov gem, that it was causing the problem. But I'm not sure, because it was the discussion from like 2 years ago. So it was also a different version of simple cav. So I'm not sure, but maybe it may help us as well, this discussion. But anyway, that's obvious that the problem is that we are not exiting with non-zero value, and that's why the Travis cannot see that some specs are failing.
Yes.
So I didn't take it because I'm not sure how to fix it for now, but I just made some small research about it.
Okay, excellent. Yes. Well, maybe you can add your notes about the research here, and or we can look at it together in a minute. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Great. Excellent.
Yeah, and the first thing is about the tests. So maybe you could help me to know the way I should do that. Because in theory I know, but in practice I'm not sure how to do that.
No, absolutely, totally understand that. Yes, and I hope you were doing a tech test for that company yesterday. I hope that went well.
You mean yeah, this one. Yes, this challenge is quite nice. It's about creating a gem.
Ah, great.
So it was fun, in fact.
Great, excellent. Okay, going on to Puneet. Hey, Puneet, how are things with you?
So yeah, this user sign up problem caught my eye, so I started looking into it. So the first issue was I posted this this URL that whenever I'm trying to run from the remote, testing from the remote, it just returns this error in the browser saying that there is a URL mismatch sort of thing. So do you think is there any workaround for this?
Is there any what, sorry, for this?
Workaround?
Workaround?
Get around this problem.
Well,
yes.
I mean, as I mentioned, I was encountering this error when I had my ports mixed up, but I assume you're running on localhost 3000. I mean, there may be a variety of little settings that need to be done. I don't immediately know what the workaround is, and I guess I think there needs to be a bigger review. Like, we've got a bigger problem here than just replicating the error locally. I mean, I replicated the error locally. Is that the error is not being there's at least two different layers of errors, and neither of them are being caught by our existing tests. So this is quite a tricky area, and I would, we'll see. Maybe Raul will have something to contribute to that, but I might possibly push you towards some other simpler things to do rather than necessarily tackling this one. But again, if you're desperate to throw yourself at the most difficult problem we have, far be it from me to stop you.
Sure. Thanks. Okay.
But so Raul's joined us. Raul, did you have any thoughts on Puneet's comments here?
I actually haven't seen it yet. I'm seeing it now.
No. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm not planning to look at this in detail today myself. Anyway, how are things with you, Raul? Good to see
all right. I tried to host a hangout yesterday for the AV102 student, but that didn't work out well. Other than that, I've been struggling with an issue on the Craft Academy site. So recently we moved to HTTPS on the site, and now some of the content are loaded through HTTP, and it's failing all over. But I fixed that issue like a few days ago when we did that. But suddenly it seems like it's trying to load some old content, some old style sheet or whatever. But can't seem to wrap my head around that and figure out where the problem is coming from.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds challenging, but also interesting. Yes. Yeah. Maybe we can have. I mean, I guess. Have you got an issue? Is that like something that you might post on an issue on the in Craft Academy? You've got the the site itself, right?
If you just go to craftacademy.se.
Well, I wasn't meaning necessarily to look directly at the issue right this second. I meant more. Is there it's a place that you're working on? I wonder if it's you could.
You mean adding an issue there?
Yeah, I mean, I often find that's a helpful thing to do. I mean, if we had no other business, then maybe we would spend some time looking on that. But I was thinking maybe if you find the if you put an issue in there and then you could pop that. I mean, because Craft Academy, the website itself, is an open source project, so there's no reason why we shouldn't have everyone share your pain. I mean, have everyone enjoy the fun and so on. But yeah, well, actually, but you say you're gonna. I certainly understand the problem that you describe as in loading kind of links, but
it's not loading the fonts, for instance.
It's not and that's at the moment. Is the problem actually expressed on the site?
Just access the console. You'll see the errors.
Right. Here we go. Yeah.
So the funny thing is, in the code, those links are not. I'm not loading from those links anymore.
Right. But so I guess, and so you're using a middleman setup. And this is the correct repo, right? Which is the branch that you work from? Is it
Maker Sweden? Yeah.
Yeah. So then you've got your where were the? Should we just follow through? Where are the fonts?
At SAS, go to the SAS folder.
Mm-hmm.
Go to fonts. There is a font.
Yeah. So you've got all of those. Fonts is being pulled in there, and fonts is then presumably being pulled in through all, or what pulls in the fonts? I guess maybe Raoul had to take a phone call there. Yes, interesting. Yeah, I mean, while I was working on middleman stuff yesterday, I guess one of the dangers with that is that the build directory, which is presumably not plugged in, and the interesting thing is to look at the.
So we don't publish the bolt thing there.
No.
The site is currently running on DigitalOcean.
Okay. So you're running on DigitalOcean rather than on PH Pages.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I guess if you inspect that, well, the thing I was asking was what loads the.
Go to the
fonts are loaded from where?
Go to all. I'll tell you which one. I think it's base.
Okay.
Not sure.
Just following. Yeah. Okay. So that's pulled in. But so I guess are you in a position to inspect the build directory?
Yeah.
And the build directory also you're able to.
If you even inspect the page at the moment, you will see that it's the right font that is loaded there. Right.
But you're still getting the errors.
Yeah.
But so the font loading is should be pulled into
the style sheet.
The main style sheet. And so where is the?
Scroll to the top.
I guess it's this all what have you here.
That all SAS all.
There we go.
There. Yeah.
So this is like the entire site, and it's minified.
Minified. But if you search there, you'll see it has. Okay.
Yeah, so we can see all of. What's the one?
Yeah, that's the correct URL that it's loading there.
Yeah, there's all the. Yes. So at least in there. So that implies by a process of deduction that there's somewhere else in the page where those other fonts are being loaded from.
Yeah, that's what I spent the last night trying to figure out, but I couldn't find it.
But so the site is loading correctly, though.
Yeah, it is loading correctly.
It's just that you're getting this.
So because I'm using the SSL things now, it wants everything to be through a secure channel. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So one thing I could do right now, just for the sake of having this working, is maybe disable the SSL thing, but that's not what I want.
Well, I guess the site is working. It's just that it's annoying that you've got these like background requests going through an HTTP. Yeah, the interesting thing there. Yeah, I mean, I noticed here that you've got, like, in your meta content, there are references to HTTP there.
Yeah.
You've got, I mean, you've got your two. I mean, you've got these. It's interesting. The meta content has got these HTTP references, and they're not. They're actually not coming up in the errors.
No, they're not coming from the.
I just. So this is I knew I shouldn't have looked at this because now I'm like, yeah. And but so if we go back to we've got the sources. We've got source there. That's the thing there. If we just do HTTP. So there's at no, and then you've also got.
We're not loading anything here.
Oh, you got right. That's interesting. So, okay. Yes, that's interestingly tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. And all of this was working until yesterday. I don't know what happened. And
Yeah. Well, and then if it was GH pages, I might have more to say. But yeah. Okay. Right. Interesting. Although in principle, it's kind of a thing like it would be nice to fix, but like it's not actually a bleed.
Yeah.
Directly, is it? Yeah. Weird. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, as I said, thanks so much for hosting the thing yesterday. I mean, I think that it's a little unpredictable when I thought that conceivably there might be. I mean, this week the AV102 students are out for what's it called? You know, doing this assignment. But whether they show up or not, and it's probably at the weekend when they realise, oh yes, it's all due on Sunday that they'll all show up in a big bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try and host one this weekend, but I'll make a note in the channel before I do so.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. Yeah, I'm gonna do that for all the scrums I do over the next 2 days. So cool.
Okay, I gotta run.
Yeah. Thanks for thanks for rolling back the website one issue. Obviously, there's a sort of a serious testing thing there, and were we able to deploy Puneet's GitHub fix, or is that being rolled back as well now?
It's now rolled back.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a shame. Anyway, I guess we'll talk more about that in the kickoff on Friday. Okay. All right. Thanks, Raoul. So yes, I think so. Puneet, that issue there for website one, that's going to be a tricky one to make progress on. Between, I mean, potentially, you know, I think we'll have a big look into it in on Friday. But if you want to be working on something in the meantime, I'll tell you one thing, which would be we've just got this new banner from Mentiv. This would be a relatively straightforward operation if you're interested in working on this.
Okay, but I'll keep a parallel look on the sign up issue.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, indeed, as you prefer. Okay. So that's our stand up. Yeah. Let's just have a look at some of the things. Go back to the local support stuff. Yes. I guess I'll mention one thing here for Piotr is like, yeah. I mean, the Wikibate documentation should be updated. I guess I would like to move all of the documentation from the wiki into like documentation in the docs directory. So that for a given pull request that changes the way things happen, then that there's kind of the documentation is included with that. But I think feel free to go and change the documentation in the wiki. It's or indeed just add new documentation in the docs directory as part of the pull request, and we'll I need to soon devote more time to sorting out the documentation, but. Yeah. Shall we talk about the code thing?
So yeah, we could.
Yeah. So I was playing with that locally. I mean, I haven't really got time to do a full presentation because I must get on with this AV102 transcribing. I was just actually starting to play around and understand it a bit better myself. I was trying out a few refactoring steps here. Actually, they are not working. So at the risk of muddying the water, one of the things I was doing is I was introducing delegation because make this candidate list simpler. I'm not sure if you're familiar with delegation.
I've seen it, but I'm not sure how it works.
Yeah. So Ruby has this thing you can extend forwardable, and then you can basically say, like, these methods will now be called on this thing. And so that should work in principle, but it's not working with friendly ID. So I think there's kind of an issue there for the friendly ID. I had it open. But I was just gonna friendly ID. I've noticed with other things with the friendly ID, I've got issues. I can maybe like this. So it's like candidates can't be delegated. Seems like candidates for friendly ID can't be delegates to another. We'll just put delegates. E.g., I'll just take some of that code. There. Yeah. I'm going to put up in here. So I was just playing with that, and it was failing in this way. Go on.
How you think I should change the tests?
Yeah. So sorry, I've kind of
instead of integration test.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah, that's getting distracted by different things. But so what I started in doing here, right, was I started writing what would be kind of like a direct test. So if we're describing setup slug there, then what we should be doing is that there's this sort of use of subject in RSpec to kind of say this is the thing that's under test, and so you can see other examples of this in the other services if we look for import do it opportunities there. Yeah, so we can say here, like, we've got the subject is this one thing, and we're testing the one thing, and then we have a list of the other things that might interact with it, but all of them are doubles or spies. And so what I'm now this test doesn't work, and that's partly what this doing is it's taking the name directly, and I'm looking at I'm just running the setup slug, and I'm trying to get this out. Of course, now that doesn't work because, as I can see actually from if I put this back into well, actually I can still run that individual test. If I try and run this, as you probably know, because I think you probably know friendly ID better than me already, but what happens is that we get what this returns is this set of candidates rather than the actual result. That makes, yeah. So I think you probably already knew that, but I didn't know until now. But so what we've got here is we've got these different bits of logic, and the idea with the unit tests is that we should, in principle, be testing those bits of logic independently. So in terms of what the behavior of just this, what this is doing, and in fact that the name kind of is itself there irrelevant. That could just be an empty string in this case, or what have you. The functionality that's specific to the setup slug, and what's going to do is it percentage? Oh, there's this other. I'm trying to be clever with all the little bits and pieces, but you'll forgive me for that. So this is like shorthand for Ruby symbol array. Yeah, what is percentage Q? Percentage I. Sorry, percentage I, and then we can have like short name, longer name, append org name. I'm just going to get the test to pass. I know the delegation thing doesn't work, and we'd have to back out of that, and it maybe makes testing it a bit ridiculous. Oh, but I did it wrong. Short name, longer name. Oh, right, and it's actually giving those. Oh, that's right. I always do that wrong. We don't want the comments, do we? Papa. Yeah. So I'm just doing this here, as you can see. This is an example of what a unit test would do. Is it basically tests the input-output only for this portion of the system under test. Does that make sense? There.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that it's always the right thing to do.
The thing is that here I'm not sure about this because you know, it's connected with the friendly ID, other gem.
Yes.
And that's why I'm not. It's a bit vague for me. What should I isolate here, and what should be then the test about?
Right. Well, yes, and I guess the idea is that anytime that you're creating a class, you're creating a public interface associated with it. Notice one of the other things that I did is I introduced the private keyword here. So as a general rule of thumb, I guess what I would be saying is that if we have, if we have a class, its public behavior should be tested. And also, we should try and minimize all classes' public behavior. Now it's
you test only public behavior. You don't test the other.
Yes, you don't directly test private behavior. So don't directly test private behavior. And it's I mean it's funny though, because there's kind of like there are these broad guidelines. Like I don't know if you've heard of the solid principles and other things, which are which are kind of general programming concepts, as are kind of these. We're then in this situation where the setup slug that we've got here, it's kind of what's the word? We're defining it to sort of fit in with somebody else's system, right? It's not like a lot of these sorts of ideas seem to kind of like come from the idea that you're programming in sort of a like you have control. You're just making some objects, and you're going to have the objects talk to each other, and so on. And so you kind of want to put the associated bits of behavior and so on into a single object that has a single responsibility, and then you want those single objects to kind of have simple, a minimal number of relations with the related objects. Is a kind of a general rule. At the same time, we're at the risk of refactoring and pulling things out for potential reuse, and maybe they won't get reused. So I think all of these things, it ends up being guidelines, and I may be getting.
For example, here we have setup slug. We don't have much here as a public, but we have a class string here extended. So should we test also each method from this?
Well, yes. I mean that's what I was sort of seeing here, is that the only functionality that this setup slug provides, once we look at it in detail, is simply, providing this list. I mean, actually, it's more, because the delegation hasn't worked. It's more complicated. Yes, I mean, if we're gone.
In fact, it was what I wanted. So I thought it should do one thing only. So. Oh
yes, no, and that's yeah. Sorry, go on.
It's just like you told me. It's like a connection between our application and friendly ID.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and it's a nice single responsibility. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, and the rest of the functionality is like in a extended class string.
Yes.
So.
Yes, absolutely. Which I think I'm also mixed feelings about. But yes, I think the place to test this functionality as a unit test actually is here. So there is, like if we want, so what we've done here by monkey matching string is we've increased the number of public methods on the string class, and so these can now be used by anybody. So at the moment, these tests, these ones here, being at the level as they are of integration, or you could even call them acceptance tests, but anyway, these tests clearly have they test multiple moving parts, right? What's not necessary, well, the point is that these things, because we've added them to the public interface of string, can be used by anybody. So we're kind of, the guideline suggests to us, oh right, if we've changed the public interface there, then we should, we should add tests for those. So that would be the traditional, that would be a place for unit tests. And
but what were in the file of setup Slack spec, or where another?
Well,
file?
we could create a string spec. So we could. I mean, if we are monkey patching string, and it's kind of, I have like this one. This seems like a good, like a perfectly reasonable addition to the the string public interface, I guess, as a sort of convenience method. I mean, I'm sort of, I'm really in love with Ruby, and I think it's great that that I can have a string like the quick brown fox, and I like the fact that I could I'm able to add to the public interface of string and then do an operation on that. I think that's nice, and it's kind of clean. There's also, but we should also always be cautious when we're adding methods to an existing class. That's just, we need to be a little bit. And then obviously there are relationships going on in here. Like this one is then building on, some of these things are building on top of other methods, and so this by itself is a standalone thing. Yeah, fair enough. I haven't worked out yet, but with this sort of set of things, I wonder if there's almost another class there that needs to be pulled out. It's probably not worth it in this case, but yeah, we always want to be cautious about it. But certainly we could have a string spec .rb, and we would add tests explicitly for those in there, and then we can do integration and acceptance tests in RSpec as we've done here. And clearly these are working, and these are all nice, and these are important for testing the relationship between the all the different moving parts of the system. But they're also, I think the argument would go that in RSpec, these are kind of, they're not fantastically readable. I mean, they're more readable than some other kind of programming languages just because they're in Ruby. But the kind of the reason for having the cucumber is to try and make more human readable things. So if we go and look at the features, I mean, I guess what's interesting is what we don't have at the moment. I just define in path is we probably don't have a high level. Oh, friendly. Oh no, nothing. We maybe don't have a description at the system level about the user story that is associated with this. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like, I mean, these are kind of probably more at the level of integration tests, that they're checking, for a given organization that its slug comes out in the right way. But the description itself is, somewhat obtuse, and it's there in a spec file. Like, in principle, like in this homepage, if we've got like, we need to, but so if we look for, there's the local residency feature, like almost this could go on, the home page. We could imagine that there was a new feature here, which would be, I mean, really I want to refactor these things so that they're sort of nice and crumbling. But we might have a homepage. What is it going to be like? List. I want something called list charities. Dot feature or whatever. I think that it's maybe like this, but I can imagine whether it's in here. I can imagine a scenario in here. I guess it's even like a. Sorry, if I have to rename this. And we can imagine this is like I don't know, like human readable URLs feature, and then this is feature as a human being, so that I can make sense of charity organization URLs in emails, etc. I would like the site URLs to have human-friendly names. I don't know. I mean, that's. I'm not very satisfied with that story, but then we have a scenario which is, human-friendly name. I don't know what am I doing. There's so many different. This is, I think, one of the challenges with programming. There's so many different competing things going on here. So many different guidelines and so many. So given that I am on the home page or something, when I almost it's I should see. I mean, if you just have here like a background step, which is like so, you create some. Given that the following orgs exist. So the thing that you're doing in no, where is it? The thing that you're doing in here with this factory, right, and creating those things. And also, the factory kind of hides what's actually happening here. Like, we get the idea from this code here that okay, some sort of transformation is going on, but we're also losing, I think, part of the information. Like if we look at the factory, we can see here that we've got that kind of factory of those things. If I just grab, we've got given that. So if we take like a step like this at the beginning here, and we stick this in here, so we say like right, given that these exist, then what we can do is we can pull the name of the charity it's into there like that. Just get rid of the other ones for the moment. Yeah, it's yeah, there we go. So the description is not really relevant to us at the moment, but so being L there, we should always put at VCR at the top. So I should see the link, let's say, and then where's it gone? Like this
on
one.
the home page.
Yeah, whether it's the home page or, I mean, like I'm kind of moving fast here. Whether it should be on the home page or that whatever mechanism, but what is it? It would be like / organizations there. I mean, there's a level at which if we write it out in this the cucumber thing, in principle we can get it into a state where there's a nice visibility of the transformation that's going on and what's happening. Do you know what I mean? Like this is kind of like a real high-level description of what we actually want. If you think about the kind of the feature that I gave you, ironically, this is one where the customer didn't request this. This is actually one that's come from me, and so it's a bit of a, but so by having, yeah, I mean, then there's things here for like actually checking that we see it appropriately. I mean, so the interesting thing, I guess what I'm trying to build up to here, and sorry for the kind of like very convoluted way that I've come to this, is that you can see that these three levels, right? So we've got unit tests that test very directly, you know, the functionality of a single class, and that the single thing that it does. And
so in this setup slug, in fact, it's only run. It's that we are checking.
That's right. That's right. And arguably, that's that's what a unit test should be. And the idea is that the benefit of the unit test is that you've got high coverage from it, and that they're fast. Yeah. But the danger is that they're like disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially, if the interface for what friendly ID required changed, then this test would be completely useless.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean. But so the reason that we write unit tests is to kind of like quickly check that the behavior of each individual object is working, and also kind of to provide a description of what is it that this individual object is doing. So although we can kind of infer it from reading here, like in this form, this tells us, oh, okay, the setup slug is just actually, it's telling us, it's doing this. It's basically giving us a list of different method names that might be called. And I mean, that also makes us to start to think about the interfaces and maybe thinking about, is this the right structure for the object? Is this a useful setup? I mean, I won't go into that any further there. And of course, particularly if we're working with somebody else's gem, like Friendly ID, then their design decisions, we might kind of go, anyway. But so what we try to do or I've tried to push towards in local support, is that the RSpec should be used for these unit tests. And in particular, if we are saying that we're like if the RSpec thing here is saying it's describing setup slug, then what it should be really doing is describing setup slug, whereas these they're actually talking about behaviors on the organization. So kind of as integration tests, these probably should. I mean, I think maybe you just move them from the base org thing for me, and that's why they're like this. But if we're testing the behavior of the org, then this is basically an integration test for the organization. You know what I mean?
So it should be in where it was?
Well, it depends. The question then is, do we need the organization integration tests? Like the integration tests, potentially have lower coverage. They are slower. The advantages is that they're more connected. And then we've got this is where we've got the real acceptance test going on here. This is trying to get up to the level of the English language description. And the question. Say again. Oh, Puneet. Take care, Puneet. Bye, Puneet. And the question then is you're familiar with this concept of the testing pyramid?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
Most unit test, more or less integration test, and
right. And the question is, do we, what's the ideal balance? How much acceptance test do we have? How many integration tests? How many unit tests? But yes, I mean, so I guess given that you've written them, and if you're keeping them in this form, right, then these, as they stand, they are kind of integration tests of the organization. So I guess almost the thing to do with them maybe is like, we've got our models thing, is that maybe what we should have specifically is an integrations folder. And then that integrations there, and use, like, in there we could have a new file in there that would be this could still be base org spectre RB, like so, and then they would sort of fit in there. I think that's if we're going to keep them.
Okay.
Oh, it's so annoying. Tab. Like so, and then describe friendly ID. It's, I mean, this I think what we're doing there is we're describing the slug method on the system, so that we could do by like this. There's sort of another when we do that. This is a way of saying, okay, we're talking about we're going to describe the instance method slug that's available on base organization, like so. Yeah, and then so this at least that keeps the models. The interesting question is ultimately
is it checking slug method, because in fact yeah, we are checking if the slug is equaling, because slug is here an attribute.
Yes, and so we can sort of see there that if we now run we do rspec, I've got this spec integrate. No, oh, I put it in totally the wrong place. Oh god. Refactor move that to directory. It should be in the spec directory. Silly. Okay, so let's try that again. Yeah. And so my spec integrations.
Like maybe you need to
require the model. I think we just need to require the Rails helper.
Okay.
Yeah, and now that's failing. Yeah, because I've broken those things in here. The delegation has totally failed to work, which I guess I will now get rid of. I don't want to. Yeah, so this one and this one, you ended up having it so it's like name.method like that.
Yeah, but it was in fact also my like I came to that.
Yes.
Because normally in the documentation of the gem they just say symbols, but also they don't use like a separate service. They use everything in the same file.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely. Yes, and that's a design choice that we might look at. It's interesting. It's doing the way it wants to set this up for me. Ooh. Sorry. The process of reviewing my videos for the AV102 course has made me realize that it's often, I'm sure it's very difficult to understand what I'm saying sometimes. My apologies.
But as your student, I could say, I see the progress.
Thank you. You're very kind. I'm trying to improve. Indeed.
I think now you're speaking much slower and more clear than in old videos.
That's good to hear. That's very good to hear. We're all learners. We're all learning. That's the thing.
Whole life.
Yes. So here we go. What we can see for this one, we've got like so base organization slug, and then the way it's moved is like this is so slug. The should use is almost old school, so we're kind of like so base organization slug provides short name as first alternative alternative, say, and then so the idea now is with this integration test that we start to get a description. Base organization has a method slug which has the following behaviors. And
but what I was asking, because slug is like just a name of the column of that database, so it's not like behaving like that. It's just having this name if we set up like this way.
Well, you can sort of see it like that. At another level, though, although we know that there's a database there and there's a database table, like we are encouraged to think about things in terms of encapsulation, if you know what I mean. So the idea is that, you know, we're kind of what we're sort of at some level we should strive towards is to be developing kind of a domain model. So we want to have, so these are important concepts of encapsulation, and then you know, working towards a domain model. And the idea is that, you know, as the system evolves and we have more and more services, and maybe other people want to use and interact or whatever, maybe at some point in the future we move away from Rails, or you know, we switch to a different sort of data store with Rails or what have you. We still like might want to be able to talk about this behavior that this entity in the domain model has. So we've got the object or the entity, which is base organization, and you know, it has, you know, methods that we can call on it, and we don't necessarily know, like we shouldn't assume that they correspond to you know, database rows or what have you. All of this stuff that we're doing in base organization, all of these things are, they're kind of changing the publicly available interface of this object or entity. And that changes the ways in which the, you know, its collaborating objects can interact with it. And so it comes back to this thing of, we probably want to try and minimize the amount of public behavior that any individual object has. And if we see it getting lots and lots and lots of more public behavior, then maybe we should try and split that behavior out. And if we do have that public behavior, then we should be testing it. But so, does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that it may be useful for future, for changes and so on. I just asked if it's if the slug method that we are describing is in fact making this behavior work, because in fact it's being set when the name of the organization is updated or saved. So that's why I was asking that, because in fact it's not the slug method that's providing the names. The slug is just showing the names that are already set.
Right. But still, and you're absolutely correct. It's not the slug that's doing the hard work of making the names necessarily. Potentially, it's just a very, very simple placeholder. But if we think about it, you know, from the perspective of, you know, the view, yeah, or any other entity that's interacting with base organization, you know, we can't see inside base organization, and we're sort of, when we're interacting it, we want to kind of think about it as a black box. So so both from the point of view of the other entities interacting with it, and also from the point of view of the tests, we should be kind of saying, okay, what's the behavior of this underlying object? And it seems that when we've created this object, there's a method we can call called slug. I have no idea how it works under the hood, what's going on. There may be all sorts of things. Maybe that this, you know, it might be that the implementation dynamically recreates this every time, or it might be, as is obviously currently the case, that representation is created on instantiation of the object, and then this is just a handy reference to, you know, it's kind of cached, as we know that it is in the database, and we can just grab it through this particular method call. But the implementation details are kind of irrelevant, and should be irrelevant to anybody who's interacting with it. It's like, oh, I want to get the slug name from an organization.
Okay.
That this is the behavior that it exhibits at the to its external collaborators, to the test, to the view, and so on.
Okay, I understand. So I just have one question more. So do you think how many unit tests there should be for this one method run here?
Well, I would say, and quite possibly, we may end up with certainly not more. I don't think any more than one is required. And actually, partly because of this, you know, I was hoping with the delegate thing that we could make a nice short test of, you know, just check it like this, right? And we just check that it's returning the simple set number of symbols. However, you know, as you discovered, you know, it actually in order, like these symbols, I don't know, when it's the symbol here, it basically will try and call these directly on the class itself. And as you discovered, when these things are on a different class, I try to find where the delegates, you have to like actually put the method in there. So I mean, well done finding that way around it. But so if we now go back to run not the integration test, but the service test by itself, I think what we'll see is that fails, and it's now getting these, you know, methods there. I mean, I guess in principle, in order to kind of fix that, with like to actually write a single test there, we would need to do something of the order of this, which is just to like, how can I put it in here? Like if I just drop those in there, and then this becomes, you know, we just put, you know, string equals like this.
I'm asking because sometimes it's really hard to understand to me what is it in fact testing, because here we are testing that the candidates are right, so that nobody changed them, and so that they are defined right way.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, absolutely. And so if we look here now, why has this failed? Compared using double equals, it needs to be. It looks diff. Is it to match? Or is it, what's the so here, and I've got your question that you asked in my head. I'm just seeing if I can do this one. What's the so then we've got the RSpec array comparison, built-in matches. We've got an F array to match array collection membership to match. Yeah, and so this sort of test by itself can end up seeming sort of pretty trivial. Now, what's the missing elements were? That's strange, isn't it? The expected collection contained these things. The actual collection contained. I mean, I think what's happening here. Go on.
Maybe we are this object is different because it's run about on the some name, and here it's like generally on string. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess possibly. Will that fix it? Yeah, that was it. So it just needed to be the same string object. Yeah. But so yeah, so here in this case, and this end of it sort of seems like a sort of trivial test, but and maybe it is at some level. Yeah, we're just checking that the order of the candidates is the order that we expect. And maybe a better way then to test this would be to say that like here, the user's short name as slug in the first instance. Actually, that is what we want to check, is that the first element of this is this, right? And I guess I'll do let. So that now looks, that's now 9.
Normally, we don't check like initialize method, or do we? And we check what variables are there.
No, well, that would be then kind of we're sort of reaching inside the object. So there's a general thing, what we were just saying there before, about how all of the tests really should be kind of black box tests. So if you see here, look, I put the initialize inside the private area because we don't actually need to, in order to get this job done, right? We don't need to expose these directly. And so as a result, you know, we can kind of get away with, you know, this very minimal interface. And if we can get away with the minimal interface, then we should. So then, I mean, basically, if the property, I mean, almost it seems like what we probably want to move towards doing here, would it be something like this, is that we would be just describing that.
What is each? Okay.
Yeah, basically that this is kind of our priority list. And then again, I'm conflicted. If I say I'm conflicted, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that you are not sure because you have many guides that you want to follow.
Yes, and there's an extent to which here, you know, I think we can, you know, it's easy to. I wonder if it will actually let us do third. Like, it almost feels like overkill in terms of getting the bigger job done, if you know what I mean. But I can't help myself. I kind of, there's a kind of playing with code, and particularly a playing with RSpec, that I kind of start to enjoy after a while. That it's fun. Is it actually a sensible thing to be doing? I'm not sure. Because
for me, it's a problem because sometimes I just cannot get, because it seems something is so trivial to me. I think, okay, it's probably like intuitively I think, okay, it shouldn't be tested. And then I get along with that, and then I see that maybe I should test it. So that's the biggest problem for me with unit tests. Sure,
absolutely. Yes, and I find myself conflicted about it as well, because often it's the case that, for me, I have learned over many years just not to trust computers at all. And so I'm generally you know, happy to make the test of something, even if it's quite trivial, because I generally expect things to fail unexpectedly. The thing that I more worry about is, you know, that is this a behavior that we're going to need very much? You know, like, so here, at least I think now, maybe you will agree, we've started to get this, like this now of describing setup slug. This is now describing it's only describing what setup slug is doing. Would you agree? Yeah, and that, at least you know, for the purposes of illustrating a unit test, this is like, at least we can say, yes, this is what a unit test is, and we've managed to use, this is a bit of, I think Rails adds third and fourth and things on it. We've kind of actually managed to, if we now run that setup slug, which we did here, we've now got this description at kind of the high level English of setup slug. Use a short name of slug in the first instance, longer name in second. This is actually a not unreasonable description of the lower level thing, right?
Yeah.
There's kind of a beauty, almost, this is a strong word. It's there's kind of a beauty there of, okay, like someone looking at this and be like, what? Yeah, could maybe get it from there. And that's what we sort of go to. I mean, whether people will ever actually read that. What was I going to do next? So with there, this is kind of, maybe that they will fix it so that we can use delegates. But I guess the thing that worries me now is that we've got this, but this seems to me to be, it's really just a single method that does this, and the state is not like, although we've got name method being called there, like, if we've only got a single method, then I think the argument for this being a separate class is not very strong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't know what's the border when it should be a separate class and where not.
Yeah.
But if we think about like single responsibility, so that's like a perfect single responsibility.
Yes, indeed. And I think that's I think always the danger with single responsibility is because what you define as single, is subjective and relative. We could say that this actually has 4 responsibilities. And we could say, right, we need a separate class for each of these, and that's the funny thing, is it that, like, we have all these guidelines, but then it comes down to judgment calls. I think now that we have it, there's, I think what we had is, let me back up. Originally, what we had is you had, all of this functionality here was in base organization. And so the issue was there. It was kind of like, that's because base organization already has lots of other responsibilities. It seems like too much, and it's sort of it's making this get bigger. I guess now that we've split it out into 2 separate things here, so we've got one responsibility, which is the ordering of the candidates for setup slug, and then all of the other string manipulation has gone into string. It almost looks like, we could have maybe avoided the service. Like, we could have stuck, I guess,
with string.
Well, yeah, we could have done here and just stuck like that in there, maybe. And then that by itself is kind of like, and then that maybe removes the. But even then, so now, and it's sort of, probably all of this is spending too much time on it for the purposes of getting something done for the client. But I think in terms of, for you and I discussing, coding in general, it's not unreasonable for us to think about those two alternatives.
So what do you think?
Well, and let me just back out here. I mean, I think that the interesting thing is, having, done that, and I can give you this code, like, it's okay to have the service. It's interesting whether any other thing would want to have a setup slug that had these different sets of things. I almost can't. Yeah, it's funny. I think what I can say is, I think if we're going to have, describe
probably if you would change the gem, for example, friendly ID would be changed for different gem, maybe.
But yeah, I think we shouldn't worry too much about the changing gem. I think what I would say is that I think if we're going to have a setup slug class, then it needs to have it should have a unit test, and probably I think the unit test would sensibly look like this. Like, I think if we have it, and so that's kind of that's fine by itself. I think, if we're going to have these things in the string class, then they should have unit tests. And
do you think this class here, extension of string, should be here or also in different file?
I think I would be tempted to maybe put it in a different file to make it more discoverable like that. And in different file. And I guess then more. So given that we've written this test, and that's a reasonable test of the integration, I think let's have it the kind of, maybe we should throw it in it should be in its own separate integration directory. That's right, and so that it's actually describing an integration on the base organization. And I think probably it would be good to have something a bit like this at the very top level to kind of be doing the I mean, I guess, did you create a, because you did the previous, oh, my brain. You did the previous pull request, which was doing, this is like the extension, right, to the previous. Did you have a specific feature test that you created for the previous one, or did you just sort of change it over and you edited all of the existing features so that they...
Yeah, I was editing all of the existing.
Yeah, right. And so, you know, it would probably be good to have something like this that's specific to, you know, describing the high-level feature. I have to apologize that we've kind of gone about this in a sort of a bit of a, you know, back to front fashion. It's happened before. We have things. It's happened. So like with this, it also happened with the validations, where you've got something that as developers you think, you know, the project really needs this, and the client doesn't request it necessarily. Or then maybe, you know, show it to the client. They say, oh yeah, that'd be nice. But and you kind of start in a sort of a bit of a spike, just to get it to work. And then you end up in this sort of situation where you're maybe missing the different pieces of the pyramid. And that's something that I think, you know, it's important to get back to check that one has got the different levels and that they're all sitting in the right places, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but sometimes it's it's hard.
Oh, absolutely. It's very hard, and I think I can only apologize here for not having provided better scaffolding for you. But it's you know, you've been making fantastic progress, but part of all this is just about, you know, I kind of want to introduce these ideas so that, you know, moving forwards we can look at other ways of approaching it. So
thank you for explaining me this, because unit test, I think, even though it's stressed in the course, for example,
yes,
it's not being like totally explained, because I've been pair programming during the edX course, and I've seen that all the people had problems with that. So
yes.
It's in fact I think the most difficult topic.
Yes. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because we had the meeting with the instructors, and there are other university courses that use the same materials, and I think they also have the same problem, in that they're like, what are these unit tests for? What's the point of them? There is this flow that is in one of the, I talk about the acceptance test unit test cycle flow in the videos for the AV102 course. I don't know if you saw that, but there's there's this idea that we, you know, it doesn't always happen, but maybe ultimately we get to it, that we have some top level thing like this that drives the creation of the thing. Of course, sometimes it's like when you're trying to work out how to do the new gem or whatever, it's easier to spike it and then kind of work that out retrospectively. But so the key thing about the pyramid is that these top level tests here, these are then like slow running, and they tend to have low coverage. Like, it's difficult to have you know, these tests, particularly because they are so slow running, to test every code path in the system. And the idea of the unit tests is that they will get the, you know, the higher coverage, they'll be faster, but also that they'll help you design kind of this arrangement of objects. And I kind of want to draw something here, which I will try and do, I guess, in a Google document quickly for you. It's kind of where I need a whiteboard. But if we have a new image here, no, not a map. Don't give me a map. I don't want a map. No. Oh yeah, it's a drawing. Well done. Is that it all comes down to this, you know, relationship between the entities. So if we imagine that we've got some, you know, our different objects, yeah, so sitting in space over here like this, that we're creating, and even in Rails, which kind of scaffolds us with stuff, we start to create more objects, and maybe there's services, and the idea is ultimately that, you know, we will get, if we're in it for the long run, then we'll start to get a benefit from having well-designed objects. And the idea is that, like, each object will have like a very small interface. You know, there's like I wonder if I can represent it like this. There's maybe like one or there's like one or two or three different different
Public
ways.
methods.
Yeah, that there are, for some reason for me, I always imagine the objects being like little circles or spheres hanging in space, and then the ways that, and you can't see inside. They're like little eggs here, and then you've got like little buttons that you can press on the exterior in order to make things happen. And you know, maybe you design the object so you know, but from when it's the system is running live, you don't know what's going on, you know, inside them. And so you know, with a well-designed system, you end up with, you know, a small number of oops, put them down here. A small number of you know, different little ways of interacting with these objects, and then the objects themselves have you know, a relatively small number of that's, oh, goodness me, I want to throw those three things there. Thank you. Right, and you know, maybe some of them will have you know, fewer things, and then you would have we do like elbow connector. Maybe you'll have like little interactions between the objects, like this, like so, and sort of the system complexity is overall relatively low. You know what I mean? You can sort of follow the pathways of connections between them, and so on and so forth. If we we're talking about the units, and the idea is that the unit tests will check, you know, all of the internals, and they'll keep the design clean. You know, this in the way that we've got here. This is kind of trying to like make it clear to anybody who's planning to use the setup slug what the behavior of the setup slug is and what the intention of what it's doing is.
Okay, and just one question. So you told me that we should check only public methods, but then, should we check every path that it's going to get to all the private methods, or?
Yes, ideally, but that's what will happen at the unit test level rather than at the acceptance test level. So put some more. So imagine that we were designing different things.
So ideally, we should check every possible relation that the public methods have with all the private methods. Yeah.
Well, what we should do is we should try and I think we should still be just trying to check all of the behaviors, right? So you know, here at the level of the unit test for this individual object, right? It's sufficient to check all of these four things. That will exercise all of these code. Well, actually, we can see one we haven't checked this if name is nil, right? So there's actually a behavior there I can just see looking over it. Like, you know, we're checking that we can access the, I guess actually there. I mean, the interesting thing here is, do we even need, I can see actually there's two other methods there that in principle, if they were lost, would, so we've got like it exposes a name. So we've got, and also here that it returns nil when arg is nil.
Return true?
Just returning. Okay, it's return. Okay, there you go. You can see how here, like, because I'm writing a test for the functionality, I'm kind of. I mean, all of these. This should be B true, shouldn't it? Have I done something wrong here? Let's just run that test. I'm wrong. Syntax error. There's some. It's expecting. Oh, I've lost a. There, what have we failed? Okay. Okay. And so in this case, no, that's setup slug string run. No, okay. So this one, it exposes a name. That's interesting. Okay, wait a sec. But so it's got attribute reader name. the running operation returns the candidate list. I wonder if this actually, does this even need to be, could that, so, and this is the thing, is that you can start to experiment with seeing, actually, could some of the different pieces be, can more of the interface be made private? And so we can do something here where we can see, expected true, got nil, return, if name is nil. That's interesting.
Maybe, oh, I don't know, maybe it's nil, but it should be true, no?
Well, I think here actually, what's happening here is that the
okay, I understand.
I mean, if it was like this, that would return the true. But if we have this if there, that returns it will return nil. So if you just do return with no argument, that's nil, like so. Now, the interesting thing here is would our integration test still run? So we can have that, you see, I've now, following our guideline that we should minimize the public interface of the class, right? I've made the attribute reader for name private, right? And so that's, from the point of view of this unit test, that's great. But if I run the integration test, let's see, maybe it will let us do it, or maybe it won't.
Yeah.
But I don't know, was that the integration test? Yes. So actually, interestingly, it can. Now, it might have been that I would have broken that, and the unit test wouldn't have. But that demonstrates the thing. I mean, it's kind of trivial. But it's sort of, we're moving towards, right, now we really have made it so that there is only this one thing here. We're testing, both code paths through there, like that one and these ones. And that unit test is now, I mean, it's kind of, maybe are we just polishing a piece of mud there? I'm not sure, but it's
but it's nice.
There's some fun in there, isn't there? Maybe that should be test, or I don't know. Just think it. And this is the funny thing. Then is you could be saying, well, let's start to test all the corner cases. Like we could put different, when the string is an empty string, when it's this, when it's that. I mean, you've got to, at some point, you've got to draw a line and say, we need to deliver the feature for the clients. We need, and say, let's put the, we'll come back if there are errors and add them as tests. Of course, in the ideal world, we would kind of like be having this, we wouldn't even add this functionality like this. We would write this test first as to kind of like describe how it should behave. Of course, that's kind of insane when, we're like, we're not deciding to do this. This is like the friendly ID people, I guess, have said, you need to do this and you need to do this and what have you and so on. It's funny. There's a real conflict, I think, between, this process of what we might call designing kind of a domain model and objects without any framework, and then designing things to sort of fit in with the framework. But just to finish this story, so the idea is you've got, by having cleanly designed objects, by removing here like the actual number of things that can be done, what we've prevented is getting into this situation. Like this is the bad situation that we end up wanting to avoid. And you've probably encountered code bases that are like this, where everything is just connected to everything else, right? And there's this, like, all these interactions between it, and you can't change anything. You can't like remove this entity. You can't take out, this guy over here, because it's so wired into the system. Whereas if you've got like this, and there's only one, say that this is the setup slug, and there's only one way it's interacting, and we're very clear about what its behavior is, then it makes it relatively easy to take that out and replace it with, a different entity, which might have a different color, for example.
Okay. So basically, we should keep this setup Slack class, or not?
Well, I think probably, yeah. Why not? It's interesting. Like here, we could put that, as we were saying there, we could put this set of candidates, and we could stick that in here. But there's kind of the argument would then follow, well, if we're going to have slug candidates and it's going to do those things, then that would sort of argue to move these tests onto the base organization class, and that would make the base organization test more complex. So, there's, I think what I would say here is that I think if we had this in here within this class like this, if that's the way things were, then I wouldn't say, oh, high priority, we must turn that into a separate service. However, given that we have turned it into a service and we've now written some reasonable tests for it, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay. And I think that the more important thing becomes, pulling this out to be tested separately and making sure that this base org thing is sort of labeled as an integration test. And I think that's something that
acceptance test.
And ideally that we have an acceptance test, and then we can we have our pyramids, and if we're really being thorough, we make sure we experiment with breaking different bits of these things to see if the tests still pass. I mean, that's something that's a more sophisticated thing. If we had the resources, ultimately you want to get to a point where you can't change anything in here without if you do anything in here that would change the functionality, then it would break in here. That's what you want for the unit test.
Okay.
And I reflect that there's there's an organization that I would like to see in our features and specs, which is I would like to make sure that anything that is actually an integration test maybe went into an integration folder, and that I want to make sure that our feature tests ultimately have got a sort of more consistent naming pattern. But anyway, apologies that all went on for long. What I'll do is I will get that and I'll push it into your branch for you, so you don't necessarily have to do it all from. Or would you like to try and do it from scratch yourself?
No, thank you for that. I'll still have a lot of work, so
yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Let me go here. Get back to your. What? Really? Yeah. So I'm just going to work out which is the branch that you're in, which is this one, and yeah. So I have a feeling that I get branch. Okay, and if I git add spec integrations, but yeah, and thank you for your comments about in the course and the unit testing. I think it is kind of it's a real challenge, I think, for us going forward with the course and with Agile Ventures and all the different things. Is I'll put this like spike of reorganizing the tests. I think it's really difficult to organizing the tests. Git push. Can I now put that Piotr? That's right. I think that it's very difficult in a short time scale to see the benefit of writing the unit tests. And I think in the course, that one of the big problems that we have is that the assignments don't really scaffold you through doing the GUI tests and then the unit tests in this acceptance test unit test cycle. And it's like you kind of write the acceptance test and you're like, okay, actually that's great. And it's like, why am I writing these unit tests? Yeah. Or what are they for? Or it just, I think it doesn't kind of make sense within the context. And
so,
go on.
I'll tell you, because we were doing that with, I think, 4 people and one of the assignments. And we started with Cucumber. And we were tempted all the time to make the code itself.
To go straight from the Cucumber to the code, absolutely.
but we still managed to do mostly all the tests we needed in Cucumber, but then we already spent like 4 hours on that, and we felt okay, but we didn't write any code yet, and we have RSpec, which is like black magic for us. Okay,
yes.
no, let's do the code and let's leave it like that.
Yes. And actually, the very first time that I did like the homework before, that's exactly how I did it. And I had to go back and I think it's particularly like if you've got this kind of grasp and you sort of know how the Ruby is going to work, and like one, you're like dealing Cucumber, and there's like the syntax, and then there's like the RSpec stuff on top of that, and it's kind of just it's like a huge hill to go up for that. It's and trying to work out a way to kind of make that make sense in the course. Like I think it, to get to the point where you can use RSpec effectively as kind of an object design tool, so that you can get, you can ensure that your underlying domain model is coming out like this and not being like this. It's really hard, like you need like kind of idea.
You know what was the problem also with the last course? It was that I was really confused because the RSpec that is the new RSpec, it's a bit different than the old one.
Yes.
And the course and lectures were still telling about, and the book as well was about the old RSpec. So they were telling to do something, and I seen that it doesn't work. So I needed to go through the documentation of RSpec, and it was also taking more time.
Yes, that should be being like, I've got new videos from Armando. The book has just been updated, so I think that should be one less problem the next time around. Fingers crossed. But yes, still, I think that the way to get across this idea of the RSpec helping you do the object design is I mean, I'm hoping that we're going to have this project course now, like 169.3 coming round, and I'm also going to I'm going to be redoing a lot of the documentation for the homeworks and assignments for this next run. So I really appreciate your input, and I'm going to try to see if I can't improve on what we've had before with that. Cool.
Thank you for this long session.
You're welcome. It's funny because I should be doing this transcribing, but this transcribing is really boring, and this is more more fun, at least for me talking about it. But so I think I've now pushed that code into there, and it will probably break the build because there's like random bits and pieces or whatever. So it's kind of a spike. Yeah, it's in there. So
okay, so it's on my origin now. Yes.
Well, it'll be on your branch there. So so well, I guess it is on your origin as much. It's on your origin in your branch because I pushed it to you there. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, have fun with that. Great speaking to you as always, Piotr, and do zobaczenia.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, and have a nice day.
All right. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.
Yes.